Welcome to the VetFarm Network Podcast, where we spotlight the people, tools, and ideas helping veterans succeed in agriculture. I'm your host, Kate. Today's episode is a little bit different and honestly pretty special. We're talking with a group of students from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, who've spent their semester working on a project focused on emergency access and farm safety for disabled farmers, including veterans with disabilities. They've partnered with AgrAbility, a program that supports farmers with physical or cognitive challenges, and they've been developing two simple but powerful tools, a preventative safety guide and a customized farm mapping system to improve emergency response times. These students aren't necessarily veterans themselves, although Matthew is in ROTC and joining the Space Force soon, but they've gone out of their way to listen, learn, and design with real farm conditions in mind, including a visit to our own farm here in East Tennessee. Before we dive in, a quick reminder, registration is now open for the Veteran Farmer Conference happening July 11th and 12th in Shipshewana, Indiana. If you're a veteran farmer or just getting started, this event is packed with hands-on training and networking, and there are tickets discounted available for veterans and their caregivers. Sign up at vetsandfarming.com. All right, today I'm joined with Catherine, Samir, Matthew, and Victoria, students from UT Knoxville, who've been working hard on this project. Welcome to the podcast. To start us off, can one of you introduce the project and tell us a little bit more about how this came to life? Catherine, you want to jump in with that one?
Yes, for sure. Thanks for having us. Yeah, so we spent this semester working on a project with AgrAbility for one of our classes. We were given the challenge statement to kind of reimagine how farmers with disabilities and or chronic medical conditions can kind of prepare for medical emergencies and just different ways to enhance their safety and their independence. So we had actually, before this project, none of us, I don't think, were really familiar with AgrAbility. So this was a really fun way to kind of explore, learn about what AgrAbility does, while also trying to solve this problem that we came to learn is a really big deal. It's a pretty big problem, and so it was fun to kind of explore that problem statement and kind of learn more about this problem and how we could solve it. So yeah, that was our initial problem that we were given, and we kind of worked throughout the semester to come up with some different ideas of how to fix it.
Awesome. And then you guys visited our farm as part of your research. So our farm is veteran owned. My husband's a disabled veteran. Um, was there anything that stood out at seeing a farm? I know our farm is a work in progress, and we're building it from scratch. So you got to see sort of the unfinished part, and then also our leased farm where we do our pastured poultry. But yeah, Samir or Victoria, was there anything that was sort of surprising for you when you did your farm tour?
For me personally, I really hadn't seen or like been around a farm very much, so just in general, the whole thing was a lot. It was a different environment. It's not something I was really used to. I think that something that really stood out to me was I just wasn't entirely sure about a lot of the processes of just even with the poultry farming. I didn't realize that it was all like constantly moving the farming around. It was a lot different than what I thought. I don't know. I feel like what I've been used to seeing, or just like whether it's in like TV shows or news or whatever, just like the really big like cattle farms. That's kind of all I really had going into it. So it was definitely a lot different. Scale wise was a big shock for me for sure.
Something that stood out to me was just how much work went into just setting up the farm. I know in general that farming's a lot of work, but just seeing when we're walking through your cleared land, I couldn't imagine just trees being everywhere. So just knowing how much work just went into that alone was really surprising. And then also seeing just all the buildings getting built and the barns. It just takes so much time to just get everything prepared before you can even start having everything set up. So I think it was just really shocking seeing the area with all the trees compared to the cleared out land and seeing how much progress you guys have made. And so I think it was just really interesting to see that. And I'm really excited to see whenever it's fully done how amazing it will look.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Yeah. It is a lot of work, and I think it'll be exciting when you guys come back and you're, after the summer and you guys can see it. You'll have to take another farm tour and we'll have to test out your final product. And so Matthew, for you, was there anything that you sort of were able to identify as issues that would hinder, us getting help, if Mark had a tractor issue or something like that. Was there anything about the environment of the farm sort of specifically that you were able to identify quickly on that on-site visit that gave you a different perspective than, just thinking about it theoretically in a classroom?
Yeah, definitely. I think just actually finding the place, when we put it in the map, we were like, is this where we're supposed to be at? Is this like the actual location? I know Samir was driving, but we were just heading out. We were trying to find, like, make sure we're in the right spot. I couldn't imagine trying to be an emergency personnel trying to find those, especially if it wasn't marked. Y'all's were luckily marked with a sign, and we were able to find it pretty relatively easily. But if we didn't know what property to be on, it could definitely be a lot more difficult. Uh, it's definitely something we thought about when we were told about the tractor flipping over. We didn't really have that frame of mind of how disconnected you and your husband could have been, especially in that large of a property. Even if you all were on opposite properties, it could have been really, really bad if you weren't able to respond in time.
I think a big thing with that too was just overall, like the terrain of the farm was kind of interesting. I know we're in East Tennessee. I know there's a lot of mountains. There's always has been, but even just on a farm, that wasn't something I was expecting to see. I thought it was going to be like a little more flat. So like even when we went down, to where like you're clearing out there down on the bottom, down the hill, getting on a tractor or something like that could definitely be really dangerous. I feel like having that just overall really mountainous terrain is a big barrier that I think we were considering for this project too.
Yeah, and Catherine, can you explain a little bit about sort of the draft you guys made originally, sort of in the classroom, and then how you adapted to actually create a product that could be used by farmers, and kind of explain a little bit sort of what this product looks like?
Yeah, for sure. So our original idea after talking with you all and then some other farmers and people was to come up with a preventative guide that would kind of give some tips for how to stay safe before anything happens, just some good practices. So we were originally thinking of kind of doing a trifold guide that would have, maybe an acronym of just some quick tips to keep in mind, be able to have instructions for how to change some settings on your phone that can be very useful, like anti-silencing, or how to use how to like drop pins for your location and that sort of thing. And then also that would go into our second idea, which was to do farm maps, where every map would be kind of labeled. And originally our idea was to have those maps on the farms themselves, so that if there was an emergency on that farm, you needed to call someone to come and help you. When they got to your farm, they would be able to see the map and have different areas of the farm kind of labeled, so that if you needed help and you said, oh, I'm at a barn, who knows what barn, if there's multiple barns, so we wanted to kind of label that on each farm and make it easier to see. And then eventually, so those were our original ideas, and after some more research, figuring out what would be kind of best, talking with you all again, we changed it to be more of a flyer preventative guide with a few more details on it, such as we wanted to create a audio version of the flyer to help any farmers who have visual impairments. We wanted to make it just easier to read in general, put some QR codes on there to give more details so that we could make the actual design look a little bit cleaner. And then also with the farm maps, we wanted to have more direction of how you can actually make these farm maps and update them as needed, since, farms do change, as we saw with your farm, on our farm visit. Y'all are in the process of doing so much to it. So we wanted to include more information on the farm maps as well, such as different driveways that are available, different fields, just more details to give emergency response services more of a detail. And we also wanted to make it a virtual kind of online map, so that the responders would be able to see the map sooner rather than when they actually got to the property. So that was kind of how we developed our product throughout the whole semester. We got a lot of input from different farmers, from first responders, And it was very interesting to hear all the different perspectives that we were able to get, and to eventually be able to come up with this product that we think should be helpful. So.
Awesome. And Samir, Victoria, how did you, what's sort of a scenario that you could imagine, this sort of, give us sort of the play-by-play of how this would be helpful. Like a farmer would find this in the AgrAbility toolkit potentially, or if they're at an event, AgrAbility might hand out this brochure you guys created, and they do some proactive work on the front end, right, to figure this stuff out. And then theoretically and tragically, they, have a seizure, or they have a tractor accident, or something happens. How does this play out? Like, sort of give us the scenario of how this works and the timeline of it.
Yeah, so I think our biggest area that this would play out would be under our phone settings category. So in that setting, we have things like anti-silencing setting. So for a lot of people, they'll turn their phone on do not disturb, but there's a setting that allows certain people to go through on do not disturb. So for example, my mom has it so that me and my brothers, if we call, will always go through even if she's on do not disturb. So that's something that we definitely recommend significant others and loved ones have for their farmers. Another phone setting that we included is voice activation. So let's say if there was an accident and the farmer couldn't reach their phone, if they have an iPhone, they could say, "Hey Siri," or we have different options for other phones, just so that in the case they could be like, "Hey Siri, call 911," and they can still get that support that they need. And then also we have different things for emergency contacts so that in the case that something does happen, they're able to reach out to whoever they need. And then lastly, location apps. So we included Life 360, Find My iPhone, Google Maps, and then there's a bunch of others that can just drop a pin wherever you're at so that whenever someone is out looking for them, they'll be able to know their exact location. And so we thought those were really important and crucial whenever there is an accident. And then as Kate was talking about with Catherine was talking about with our farm mapping, in the incident that they do need to call 911, we found out that we're able to give dispatchers the map in advance so that if they say they're at barn B, whenever the dispatch team is driving to the farm, they can look at where barn B is on the map so that as soon as they get there, they have a better idea of where they're located, and they can also see what driveways are available for the ambulance to go through. And so this way that we're saving as much time as possible and getting the farmer the help they need as quickly as possible.
Samir, is there anything else that you would add to that as something that would help save time for emergency responders, the sort of the piece that the farmer needs to do before the accident happens, and proactively to make sure that these tools are in place?
Yeah, so when a farmer like originally meets with AgrAbility, kind of how that process works is they already have a like planned visit for the farm just to kind of get an understanding of where everything is. We really wanted to work on that aspect of when that AgrAbility member is there, so that when they're there, we're easily able to make like figure out what each thing needs to be labeled for the map, so we can very clearly and concisely put like each barn has like a different letter, and then having a visual aid showing that. And then each specific field would also be labeled that way. And then we also wanted to have that connection with having the AgrAbility there, just so that when these maps are being created, it'd just be a lot simpler and it'd be consistent across, so that when they're sent out to dispatch, they'd be basically the same thing no matter who it is. Um, a lot of it really was just focusing on getting in there and using that AgrAbility member to kind of aid in that assistance. We wanted to make sure that they were getting as much help there on the front end as possible.
That's a really great idea. I mean, I think this is really important, especially as a lot of farms are transitioning to, it's a lot of first generation farmers are taking over farms, or people are moving as, economies and people just change and move across the country. A lot of farms historically have fields that are named certain things, and maybe everyone knew that 100 years ago or 50 years ago, but as new farmers come in, we nickname fields new things. And so if I tell someone, I'm in Robert's pasture and I've broken my leg, that's really unhelpful to the rescue crew. They might not have any idea where that's located. So this idea sort of giving back and doing something as a real community service project. I know, Matthew, you do a lot with Scouts and now ROTC and serving the nation in the Space Force. Can you say a little bit to, what this means to you, to knowing that you're helping, disabled veterans or just the farming community with a project like this?
Yeah, definitely. I was really proud about getting this project. When we first heard about it, I didn't know a lot about AgrAbility. And when we first met with Eileen from AgrAbility, she told us about how motivated they were to working with veterans and getting them back into farming if that's what they wanted to do after their service, and then giving them where they're self-reliant and they can do their own farming. They don't have to rely on others to do it and have those connections and really develop that support group for them. I was really proud to be a part of this project and helping them in their most desperate time of need, especially if they have those difficulties from serving and or those injuries that they've had in the past from serving. Giving them this guide hopefully can really motivate them to be proactive and give them the best chance they have and getting rescued by emergency services.
Awesome. Well, I really want to thank you all for your, thoughtful work and your attention to detail. I know you guys worked really hard on this, and I hope you guys get a good grade from your professor. And thank you for taking the time during finals week to join us on the podcast. It's encouraging to see the next generation stepping up with practical, meaningful contributions to the farming community, and you're helping to make our farms safer in a really kind of naturally dangerous industry. So I really appreciate that. And you're showing that service can take on many forms, even outside of the military. We really thank you for supporting Tennessee veteran farmers. And this guide is going to be available to farmers around the country as well. So we'll include the link in our show notes as well. To our listeners, keep an eye out for the finalized version of these tools through AgrAbility. And if you're a veteran farmer, don't forget to register for the Veteran Farmer Conference, July 11th and 12th. Visit vetsandfarming.com for all the details. Until next time, farm on.